That was me.
I was looking back and forth. I was like, was that Scott or Robert?
Nope.
It's hard with masks.
This is Scott. How is the volume there?
Sounds great.
Good. Should I mute if I'm not speaking? Probably.
Yes, if you can, that is an excellent idea.
There it is.
When you're speaking, yes. Yeah.
So how does that look for a screen share?
Looks great.
All right. And then I guess other presenters, I guess maybe I'll just keep my screen up, and that's probably easiest. You can just tell me when to advance slides. Would that be easiest? We don't have to go back and forth.
Hey guys.
Okay. So will you just have the one slide, but I'll just keep my computer up, and then you just tell me when you're, you'll be fine. Yep. So I'm going to clean up my screen and get rid of all this other stuff. So I'm going to stop sharing. If that's okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Hey Wade, it's Drew. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you, Drew.
How's it going today?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Good. Let's see here, what we got left. Share screen. Emails.
Wade, it looks like you're able to advance the slides on your own and all that.
Yep, we just did a screen share. I'm just cleaning up my desktop so I don't have all junk to share. But yeah, it looks like we're good to go.
Awesome.
Hey, just a heads up, Drew, I embedded that video into the presentation, so we should be pretty seamless with that transition. So
Okay, perfect.
hey, Scott, any recommendations? I mean, so the video that I embedded, they'll hear it at the same level that, or any audio adjustments I would need to do with that?
You could test it and make sure that everybody hears it.
Hey guys, can you just tell me if the video audio is clear? So how's the audio on the video?
I couldn't hear any audio.
Couldn't hear any audio. Could anybody hear audio? You could? Couldn't? So I'm going to try something else. Anyone hear that? So I got a thing that says I'm screen sharing but not broadcasting. Would I want to broadcast?
No, broadcasting is once we go live. So once we do broadcasting, it's open to all participants. Right now, it's just panelists.
So that audio wasn't much better on the video?
I still couldn't hear it.
I did not hear it either.
Let me try something else.
You start to hear it in everybody else's. PowerPoint, but nobody else can.
I had it embedded into the PowerPoint. Would that be, if I just played it regularly, would that?
I'm not in favor of doing that, but
And what?
putting them in the PowerPoint.
But I'm saying, so can I just try it standalone and see if that works?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So would I would screen share and then screen share the video? Is that what I would do? Okay. It's not up. There we go.
Audio on that either.
What if I go?
Hey, oh, Scott. Scott's the mastermind.
No.
When you do share your screen, or if you're doing share your PowerPoint, when that box comes up of which option, there might be a little click in the corner that is share computer audio.
Okay.
See if that is there, and if it is, then click that, and that might help.
Your computer sound, there it is. Okay. Let's see. Still don't see the video. It's standalone. Okay. One more time.
Morning, Carmen. Thanks
Morning,
for
Wade.
joining us. Do you mind introducing yourself?
Good. Awesome. Great.
Sounds good.
Woo. All right.
I learned something new today.
So I'm gonna, I'll be back in 2 minutes. Anything? Oh, I think I turned. Okay.
Quite so loud.
Well, I wanted to see if that audio could. So I'm gonna just try the video audio one more time, guys. Thanks for bearing with me. So.
Morning, Carmen. Thanks
Morning,
for
Wade.
joining us. Do you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about you and what brought you to Fitchburg?
Good. Okay, I'll be back.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I do believe that if you just use the space bar, if you want to talk, you can hold down the space bar, talk as much as you want, and then let go. Oh, it goes back to the top? That's my pro tip. Scott, do you remember that? If you want to just interject for a second.
Me too, I couldn't get the video going.
Paper. Yeah, I believe I don't have anything to write on it. Actually, this is yeah, my handiwork anyway, isn't it? It's your paper. What's your American Planning Association? Official name of this group?
Yep. All right, so we can do.
This is Drew. I have a quick question for the Fitchburg contingent. Do you guys prefer to wait till the end to answer questions, or do you want me to fire them at you as they come in?
My instinct would be the end, but I guess let's hear what other people think. Rob? Scott? Yeah, I think just in terms of maybe flow, we could do it at the end. And that way we can make sure we get through everything.
Sounds good. And then lastly, let's see, Wade and Robert. Scott, your last name is pronounced Endel.
Endel, that's correct.
Endel. And then Carmen Torres Knirk.
Yeah, that's right.
And just a heads up, Drew, Carmen she'll be in the video that I was testing, and then she'll be here to answer questions. She won't be presenting, so.
Okay, thanks.
So should I get my screen all set up to share, or should I wait till we start? Any thoughts, Drew, or?
I think you can go ahead and
Okay.
share.
All right. So how's Beloit these days?
Busy, man. Crazy busy.
Yeah.
In a
I was
good way.
down there, well, actually Scott and I went down there months back and checked out some of the riverfront. It was like a golf course simulator type business down there.
Yeah.
Pretty cool stuff happening down there.
Yeah, the golf lab. Yeah, that's cool. And we got a new pedestrian bridge, as you probably saw, right at that location. It was a donation actually to the city that crosses the Rock River in that spot. So that's been a game changer to connect that Ironworks district to the kind of Beloit
Nice.
College area.
Right.
But no, our Amazon plant is done. That's been a behemoth, been preoccupying us for a year now, but it's 1.3 million square feet and they built it in 9 months.
Wow.
So a little intense.
Is that kind of greenfield or outskirts kind of development,
Yeah.
or where is that? Okay.
Yeah, it's greenfield. It's out in our Gateway district right off of I-90.
Oh, sure. Okay.
But they're hiring up to 1,000 people, and we're going to start running buses out there in a couple of weeks. So it's quite the deal. The building itself is just unbelievable.
Do you work with James Otterstein at all? Is he still in the county?
Yep, work with James quite a bit. Yep,
Yeah, I used to. Well, I think you knew that, but I used to work
Yep.
for Rock County, and
sure,
yeah, worked with James in the department. So
sure. Yeah, James is a good person to work with for sure.
yeah, pretty go-getter, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You probably don't miss that commute, I'm guessing.
No, that was I lived out west for a while, and that was the first job I found in the region when I moved back. And yeah, it was living in Madison, so was always kind of keeping my eye out for a lesser commute. But
Yeah.
yeah, I enjoyed my time down there. Learned a lot.
Yeah, Janesville too is doing great things. They've got a lot of good things happening. So,
How long have you been with Beloit?
13 years.
Okay. Oh wow.
The ironic thing is I interned for Fitchburg in grad school, so 2007. So
That's right. Yeah, I think I knew that. Yeah, I think we still have your folder of intern files.
yeah, it was good. Short.
Sure.
Tom
Drew
was.
Oh, I'm sorry, Drew.
I was going to say Tom Havel was the planner at that time, and then Jason Schmidt was there, and then
Oh yeah,
someone else I can't remember.
probably
Scott,
maybe.
I think Scott was there.
Yeah, so Drew was an intern under Tom in 2007. So I don't know if Susan would have been here yet, or maybe or there was an older, I think, woman near retirement, Patricia. She might have been on her way out, and Susan was coming in, or yeah, something like that.
Yes. right around that time. Yeah, I remember
He works for City of Beloit.
the battle over that northeast neighborhood was in full swing at that time. With the adjacent township.
Yeah, Town of Dunn, they're kind of the pro farmland preservation. Yeah, and actually one of my first projects when I got here was pushing that urban service area amendment through, and I think I still have some wounds that I'm licking from that, but yeah, that was a process. But actually, yeah, we're starting to develop that kind of we have a smart code, so kind of like a form-based code that the developer's working under in that neighborhood. So that should be some pretty interesting stuff. And actually, the Village of Oregon or Oregon School District, they built a brand spanking new elementary school, kind of on the north part of the neighborhood. Is that right? Yeah. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'll be right back.
You're on mute, Scott. Oh, you just left anyway.
What do you do with the city of Beloit, Drew?
You just left.
I can unmute real quick. I'm the planning director here, city planning. And then building inspection as well. We got 3 in-house building inspectors.
Hey, Carmen, you want to tilt your just so it kind of isn't looking up for your nose. You know what I mean? I mean, that's fine. That's fine. Unless you do. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So I think come 12:30, it'll be good. Hey, Drew,
Yeah,
I think when I play the video, I'll probably play it in like 5 seconds in. I'll just check in with you and make sure the sound is coming through.
sounds
Sound
good.
good? Okay.
And our host with APA Iowa, I'm sorry, I don't know your name. I didn't catch it. I came in a minute late.
Hi, I'm Liesel.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'll go silent and invisible as soon as we get close.
Feel free to stay on, answer questions.
All right. If you guys are ready, and Drew, if you're ready, if we want to go live like the 2 minutes early, that way people can refresh their screens and get started, we can do that if that's cool.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks for me.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
welcome everybody as participants start to filter in here. We'll wait for a few more minutes and give folks an extra chance to join us here after lunch break. Well, it's 12:31. Why don't we get started here? Welcome everybody to our afternoon session here. The room's starting to fill up here. My name is Drew Pennington. I'm with APA Wisconsin, and I'm here to moderate this session. By now, all of you are pros with the Q&A options you have available to you here, but feel free to use the Q&A in the Zoom or in the app, the conference app, and I'll try to channel those questions to our panelists here towards the end of the session. Our session today is about the city of Fitchburg, Wisconsin. Fitchburg is just south of the city of Madison. We have 3 staff members from the city here with us. We've got Wade Thompson, who is a planner for Fitchburg, Scott Endel, who's director of Parks and Rec, and Carmen Torres-Knirk, who's a neighborhood navigator. And then we also have Rob Stein, who's with Ayers and Associates, who's going to be speaking on this project. So Fitchburg has unique challenges and opportunities for a city of 30,000. The city recently adopted a Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative, formulating a strategic, collaborative, and holistic approach to address specific issues in 3 neighborhoods in conjunction with partners and residents. So once again, welcome. And with that, I will turn it over to our team at the city of Fitchburg.
Thank you, Drew. Again, nice introduction. I'm Wade Thompson with the city of Fitchburg. So today we'll talk about this idea of towards healthy neighborhoods and one city's roadmap, that city being the city of Fitchburg. So again, Wade Thompson, community development planner with the city of Fitchburg. As Drew mentioned, we do have 3 other speakers today. I think I will let them introduce themselves just quickly, starting with Scott, then Carmen, and then Rob.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Scott Endel. I'm the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Forestry for the City of Fitchburg. I have been here for about 14 years and have been within the park and recreation profession for over 30 years. So I have been in the field for quite some time, but we are certainly really excited about this initiative and the leadership of Wade in the planning department, and looking forward to present it to you, and hopefully it'll draw some interest of other communities within the state of Wisconsin and neighboring states. So thanks again for having us.
Hi, I'm Carmen Torres-Knirk, and I am the City of Fitchburg Neighborhood Navigator.
Hi, I'm Rob Stein. I'm with Ayers Associates. I'm a landscape architect, and I've had the pleasure to work closely with kind of community and the city staff to kind of develop the site on a site design basis. So it's been a real pleasure, and I appreciate you having me.
All right, thank you all. And I do want to acknowledge a few other folks that aren't here today that were a really big part of what we'll talk about over the next half an hour or so. The first being Mike Zolke, who is a senior associate architect with Engberg Anderson. Mike developed the hub, some of the hub renderings that you'll see again in a few minutes. I also want to acknowledge Vanderwall and Associates, Vanderwall did some corridor visioning for a neighborhood that we'll again focus on during the course of our presentation. And then I also want to thank the Health and Health Policies Work Group, which essentially consisted of the Center on Wisconsin Strategy, the UW Population Health Institute, as well as 1,000 Friends of Wisconsin. They were instrumental in helping us develop some of the content that you'll see today. So again, we'd like to acknowledge those folks. So just in terms of what we want to cover today, three basic things. We'll talk about healthy neighborhoods, what, why, and where. We'll talk about this idea of a roadmap to healthy neighborhoods in the city of Fitchburg. And then we'll kind of drill down and look at one case study and focus on one specific neighborhood and look at how that neighborhood has followed that roadmap, again, to move towards that idea of healthy neighborhoods. And when we talk about that roadmap, I do want to talk about what I call the 3 Ps of people, programs, and places. So I think just beginning at the beginning, as they say, what are healthy neighborhoods? Well, Fitchburg has developed kind of a 3-tiered definition as it relates to healthy neighborhoods. The idea of being equitable in access to opportunities, diverse in land use, housing stock, and people, and then having components that are integrated, stable, and sustainable. So talking about things like education, employment, housing, recreation, public safety, and environment, not being siloed, but really being integrated and overlapping, again, to really promote that idea of healthy neighborhoods. And I think you take those 3 pieces together, and again, that leads us to this idea of health as it relates to our neighborhoods. And again, when we talk about healthy, we're not talking physical health, that is a part of it, but really we're talking about social, economic, and environmental health of our residents and the neighborhoods in which they live. So why healthy neighborhoods? Well, I think as planners and people that generally work for government, we understand that resources are limited. So we want to make sure that we're efficient in how we allocate those limited city resources. So instead of being kind of reactive and focusing those resources downstream, as it maybe relates to public safety or other issues, we want to get upstream and be more proactive. We think ultimately that'll be a better, again, allocation of our resources, and will better serve our city residents as well as our taxpayers. Similarly, we think healthy neighborhoods provide benefits to not just the residents that live within them, but the broader communities and regions in which they are a part of. And again, we talked earlier about social, economic, and environmental. So again, we clearly think those are benefits that accrue to residents and regions. And finally, we think healthy neighborhoods are important because this idea of building community, and I realize that's somewhat of a philosophical concept, but I think when we talk about community, we're really talking about identification of shared interests and movement towards common goals. So we kind of have the what and the why. Now let's talk about the where. And again, for folks that maybe aren't familiar with Fitchburg, looking at the map on your top left there, we're kind of smack dab in South Central Wisconsin, literally just south of Madison, due west of Milwaukee, southeast of the Twin Cities, northeast of Chicago. Moving to the map on the right, you'll see that big gray box with the stars in it. That big gray box is Fitchburg. We were a former township in Wisconsin. That means a 36 square mile entity. In 1983, we incorporated as a city. So that gives you that unique city boundary that you see today. So again, we did incorporate in 1983. We've got some urban elements in our north part of our city, which we'll talk about, some more suburban elements kind of in our city's middle. And then the southern part of our city is literally still agricultural land, almost 11,000 acres. So again, a very, very interesting land use dynamic that makes planning certainly a challenging and interesting undertaking. Moving kind of to the map on the bottom, I guess backing up, I do also want to point out we're one of the fastest growing cities in the state. I think both percentage and number wise, we're currently at about 30,000 residents. And kind of to my earlier point about our interesting history and land use dynamic, for a city of our size, we do have a equal single family, multifamily residential mix. So again, that creates some interesting opportunities and challenges as we plan in our city. So more specifically, when we talk about healthy neighborhoods, there's 3 neighborhoods that we're currently focusing on. We call them priority neighborhoods. So they are all along the northern tier of our northern border, adjacent to the Madison southern border. You'll see them up here in the 3 black stars. But now I want to talk a little bit about how we identified those priority neighborhoods. So I really want to give a shout out to our Regional Planning Commission. Capital Area Regional Planning Commission goes by the acronym CARPC. A few years back, they came up with a great piece of data, a great document. They entitled that Geography of Opportunity, a Fair Housing Equity Assessment for Wisconsin's Capital Region. And in that document, they essentially came up with a matrix that you see in the chart on the screen there that evaluated all the census blocks in our county. I think it was about 400 census blocks. And they gauged those census blocks as it relates to equitable access to opportunity. And what they found in their analysis was 29 census blocks in Dane County were quote unquote red flagged for not having very good equitable access to opportunities. 8 of those census block groups were in the city of Fitchburg. So kind of where the rubber hits the road there is we have 6% of the city's population, but almost a third of those county block groups that were kind of identified as being not having good access to opportunity. So as planners, that was, I think, alarming. That was surprising, not surprising, but interesting. And I think the thought was, okay, well, what do we do with that information? And I think at the core of this idea was, do we map those areas or don't we map those areas? And I think as planners, we all know the tool or the power of maps as communication tools. Certainly they can be used for good or evil to over dramatize it, but we really want to be careful with how we presented the data in those neighborhoods. So ultimately, we decided to map the neighborhoods and publicize that. That was probably the best decision we made. By mapping the neighborhoods, we let our policymakers and our residents know exactly where these neighborhoods were and how and why they were unique. And I think as a result of that, you've seen some momentum build to do better in these neighborhoods, as we'll talk about over the next few minutes. So again, our first step was mapping the neighborhoods. That led to inclusion of that map with some of the data that I just talked about in a 2-page memo to some relevant city committees. I think the data, the memo, the maps really resonated with our committees. That led to them tasking staff with developing a strategic plan to address issues in these 3 neighborhoods. So we did that. We got it adopted in 2019. It contains 16 specific action items. So over the past 2 years, we've actually made progress or completed 9 of those action items. And I think kind of the take home here is this idea of the process that we undertook, the data that we presented, the thoroughness of our process, and it ultimately led to resources. It led to city resources being allocated to these neighborhoods. And it also led to nonprofit partners partnering with us to help us better serve these neighborhoods. So again, that process kind of showed you what I call is our roadmap. So basically, via that process, we came up with a roadmap to better serve our priority neighborhoods. We entitled that roadmap our strategic plan and our Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative. And when we talk about that strategic plan, I think you could really boil it down to essentially what I'll call the 3 Ps of people, programs, and places. And we'll talk more about that as well. So now you kind of have the big picture of Fitchburg in terms of where we are, what we are, and what our Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative is all about. I want to drill down to one specific case study, one specific neighborhood, and how that neighborhood has followed that roadmap to really kind of boost that neighborhood and get it on the track towards becoming a healthy neighborhood. So the neighborhood I want to focus on is our North Fishhatchee Road neighborhood. You can kind of see it on the top map there, kind of smack dab north central Fitchburg. For folks that are familiar with the Madison area, just south of the Beltline. So that corridor, that road gets a lot of traffic, almost 50,000 cars per day, one of the most used arterials in our region. And I think, for lack of a better term, we envision it as Fitchburg's gateway. Literally in this neighborhood, there is no park space. Again, some of this is remnants of bad planning that was undertaken years ago before we became a city. But the gist of it is literally no park space in that neighborhood. And then I think another interesting dynamic as it relates to this neighborhood is the land use dynamic. It's literally 100% multifamily residential, no single family homes. And I would characterize that residential housing stock as aging. And generally speaking, we have some strip commercial as well. And I think the images to the left identify kind of the predominant land use demographic or dynamic in that neighborhood. And then if you look to the right on our map, just to kind of orientate people. So the red line is our corridor, North Fish Hatchery Road. You see the blues that's potential as sprawling, these 1980 style, garden style apartments, again, aging. The red are of our commercial property. You can see them scattered in red there. And then this green hatched area to the west of the corridor is a city golf course property that we'll talk more about. So as we talk about the 3 Ps, focus on people as kind of the first P, and I think probably the most important. So as it relates to this, we did recently get some funding from Dane County to hire 2-time city employees. They're also residents of this neighborhood to assist neighbors in accessing available resources and gathering feedback on neighborhood needs. These employees as our neighborhood navigators, and ultimately by getting that feedback, neighborhoods and those residents, we hope to continue to build trust between neighborhood and city, influence future city policy. And I think it's also important to recognize that these two I think they generally reflect the dynamic of our neighborhood. So with that, I'd like to play a quick video that highlights in more detail our neighborhood. And maybe at this point, Drew, I will just play a few seconds and make sure that the audio coming.
Morning, Carmen. Thanks
Morning,
for
Wade.
joining us. Do you mind?
Sound good, Drew?
Telling us a little bit about you and what brought you to
First Knurk, and I've been in 2.5 years now from and would be living over here, but I really, really like this state.
Great.
Well, when I first moved here to Fitchburg, I didn't know anybody, and I wanted to learn about the neighborhood that I was living in. Volunteered for our local senior center, and about this position, and she thought that I would be good for it and it would interest me a lot. So I thought.
So a little bit about the work leader.
So as a navigator, we are out to inform people of a certain part of our city about different resources in the city, what to them. In Fitchburg, there's, in the location that we're working in, it's predominantly Hispanic. So we try to inform those people of resources that they can use that they would normally not know any information about.
Great.
Sí, hablo español.
Okay, great. And you're of Indian descent, is
Yes,
that correct?
I am.
So burning question, better in Chile or Peru?
Peru.
Okay.
I like that I know people out in the community. I like that I am working with all people, just getting to know how people are and what their needs are and what's most important to them.
Good.
I think so. There's been a couple instances where I've been at a store and somebody seeing me in a different location passing out information has come up to me to ask me if I have any information regarding whatever their need is. And so that makes me feel like getting the word out and helping people.
So do you have any advice for other cities that might want to start a neighborhood navigator program?
I would say first and foremost, find out about all your local resources. And then depending on the community that you're working with, really try and stress to look for what the people need the most, and just put yourself out there.
Any last thoughts?
No, I'm excited about this position. I love this position, and I hope this continues for a long time, and we grow and reach. Hopefully, other parts of the state will follow behind us, and hopefully, we can get this to a normal position everywhere.
Yeah, and as a city, we're certainly grateful to have you and want to keep you here as long as you want to be here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Carmen.
Right, so hopefully that gave you a better sense of what we mean when we talk about kind of the people aspect of our strategic plan roadmap. Now I want to talk more about this idea of the programmatic piece. So a few years ago, our city did initiate a micro grant program. We started out with about $50,000 per year to support our residents in those neighborhoods through basically funding nonprofits that are doing work in those neighborhoods. So again, $50,000, we're trying to build that pot every year, make it a little bit bigger. But I think this really shows you the value of partnerships. Without this grant program, we would not be able to initiate and solidify a lot of partnerships that we've been able to do so. And if you look at this chart here, or this slide, just gives you a sense of all the different partnerships that we've created, from faith groups to female youth empowerment to adult education, employment, environmental groups, food pantry groups, Meals on Wheels. You know, it runs the gamut of issues that we're seeing in our neighborhood. So this has been a great catalyst to, again, help us solidify partnerships with nonprofit organizations. And I think kind of where we want to take this program right now, we're funding everything under the sun, as you've seen with the slide and the different organizations. I think we'd really like to make this grant program more issue driven and focused, and more specifically focused on the issues that our residents tell us they want help on. And I think with the navigators' help, with enlisting some of these partners, we'd like to really explore that concept over the next few years and have our residents tell us where we should prioritize our grant program funding. And with that, I think I will turn it over to Scott Endel to talk more about this idea of our places in this neighborhood case study. But before I do that, I think I'd like to check in with Drew and just kind of do a time check, see where we're at.
We're in good shape. We've got at least another 10 minutes presentation.
Okay, thank you. So Scott, I will turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Wade. Certainly, I did want to take a brief second to another shout out to the American Planning Association for allowing us, affording us the opportunity to speak with you about this very cool initiative. And I guess I would want to drill down a little bit on the role of the Park and Recreation Department within this initiative. I see the Park and Rec Department being one of the main vehicles in implementing the policies and the programs and these types of resources in the community. Also, I really see the Park and Rec Department as the consistent a player there, in that, you know, there's going to be nonprofit groups that are going to be moving in and out of the neighborhood, and program providers, and I think with this type of an initiative, the consistency of a place to contact is something that the Parks Department and the Recreation Department can provide that role. And maybe more specifically, the Parks Department, we're able to provide the physical spaces, and certainly in this neighborhood, we have the golf course, as Wade mentioned, to the south, but we're also able to secure some additional parkland to the north through our parkland dedication ordinances, along with our park improvement dollars that we receive from new development, there is actually another newer development on the east side of Fish Hatchery, just to the east of this development, that's going to be providing some funding. And that's really, I think, a key component is we not only provide the space, but we also have the funding mechanisms through our ordinances to provide the amenities to develop these park spaces. And in regards to the recreation department, with the recreational staff, we have the expertise and the knowledge of programming and how programming should be run. And that's not to say that we as the recreation department can provide all the programming. I think that's where the nonprofits and the partnerships that we create with these other service providers are really the success of the program. Other departments that are involved that have helped along the way, we've got the IT department, which are helping us with security infrastructure, if you would, along with which I think is really kind of a cool thing, is to provide internet access to this new park that we're looking to create on the northern side of Traceway. The police department's been involved with the design, and also actually our CETA, which is our economic development group. They provided the funding to hire heirs to come in and do the comprehensive plan that we are looking to implement as soon as 2021. And maybe just as a couple of closing comments or summary comments, it's really quite remarkable that this initiative, began a little bit over 3 years ago with a $10,000 allocation to the Parks Department for neighborhood gathering and activities and things like this, and has grown into a full-fledged grant program through the city. And now with the work of heirs, the idea of actually building a hub on the north side of the community is really pretty cool. And just one other closing comment, that the methodology that we're learning through this process is going to be the same methodology that we'll use in, we do have 2 other neighborhoods that are classified as a healthy neighborhoods, along with a third. So this work will really provide the process as we continue to try and do these kinds of projects in our other northern neighborhoods. So I think with that, I hopefully used up my 5 minutes, but certainly we'll take some questions at the end. But again, a big shout out to your organization for allowing us to come and talk, and hope to hear from you soon. So thank you.
Thanks, Scott. And maybe a little bit more detail on the hub site, and then I'll turn it over to Rob. So basically, we're talking about a 3.5 acre site in the heart of our neighborhood, both city holdings as well as some private holdings. And when we talk about project goals for the hub, which again, Rob will talk more about, I think it's really about how do we meet the social and recreational and resource needs of our neighborhood residents, and as well as attracting the broader community. So I think we want to bring in folks to that neighborhood that may not traditionally go into that neighborhood. Again, really making it a destination for our city. And I think the second goal is this idea of stabilizing the neighborhood, and that may not be the right word, but I think the idea here is we really want to spur potential new investment, enhance property values, while concurrently making sure to not displace current residents. So we're very conscious of really kind of upvaluing the neighborhood, but also maintaining the folks that want to stay there. And I think those 2 ideas really lead to this third goal, which is a quote from William White, and folks might know who William White is. But William said, what attracts people most, it would appear, is other people. And I think the idea is if we can create a hub site that attracts the neighborhood, the community will follow, we'll get people on the site, and we think good things will happen as a result of that. Then in terms of just a little bit of discussion on how do we engage the neighborhood around the hub, I think we knew that traditional city engagement practices wouldn't work. We knew it had to be grassroots and organic. So we did rely on the navigators that we just talked about. We did rely on some partnerships that we we developed through our grant program to really have them be the city's, carry the city's voice into the neighborhood and get feedback on what this hub should look like. And for planners out there that are doing work in underserved neighborhoods, I think the laundry list that you see on the right there will come as no surprise to you. A lot of things that we saw through the data, but it was good to hear that coming from the residents. So as we kind of developed the hub concept based on neighborhood engagement, we broke it out into 3 categories: desired outdoor amenities, desired indoor amenities, and then desired services as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Rob to talk in more detail about the hub site.
Thank you, Wade. What I'll do is just kind of give you a quick kind of a fly through of the site, hitting on some of the major elements that we focus to kind of try to achieve those goals set forth by the community, the navigators and city staff, and the overarching goals of the project. As you see here, this is kind of the final overview plan of the site. Running through the middle is Traceway. The site is divided kind of in a north and south half. That said, we wanted to maintain a strong connection between the two. We wanted to be separate entities of one another. And as you see up on the north side, we have a community shelter building, a restroom, a covered recreational event space, playgrounds, and some other amenities connected with a strong spine that runs through the site and across the road, allowing travelers down Traceway to realize that you're approaching something. This is something different, something special. And then on the south side, there is a community service building to serve the community in a variety of ways and provide space for potentially leasable space, senior space, organizations, clubs, things like that. And then on the southern border, it abuts the Nine Springs Golf Course, and efforts were looking at how to improve those services that they provide as well. Really quickly, like many projects like this, things get broken down into phases to make it more palatable for a community to break off pieces that make sense together. This one, very simply, it was a north and a south division primarily. And we'll focus, we'll look at both of those areas. But as you can see, they kind of encompass those 2 areas shaded in blue and orange. All right, so this is a view looking on Traceway Drive, looking north into the site. And working with Mike, with Ingberg Anderson, we developed, kind of a character that we wanted to pull through the entire site, north and south. What you see here would be a community shelter building with some covered space in the back, and then some rentable or usable event gathering spaces, concession windows, and then throughout the site, kind of adapting a native landscape would be envisioned with signature lighting. And then you can see kind of the spine on the right-hand side that would be kind of flexible overflow space for food trucks, different events, farmers markets, things like that. And then we'll get into the covered structure you can see in the back, but this view kind of gives you kind of a street side view of what a passerby might see. Now this is looking south from the north end of the site, kind of an aerial view. On the north end of the site, you have a lot more of those active recreation elements, bicycle facilities of some sort, a pump track, some sort of BMX track. What that is kind of yet to be flushed out, but some sort of bicycle facility is envisioned, along with a signature play space based off community feedback. Having a place for kids to go and play and explore was an important element. And then some kind of flexible space south of that yet for different yard games and activities. And you get a little bit of a view here of that covered space off of the shelter building as well. And we wanted all these spaces to kind of bleed together and work together. And running along the back edge of those 2 structures to the right of the screen there's a strong linear connection to improved parking facilities. Because we do envision this place as a destination for, community residents of all over Fitchburg and in the area. Here's a quick view of that covered recreation and event space. What this could be used for is court sports, basketball, farmers markets, gatherings, fairs, just a real flexible, usable space that has that amenity of being covered, and we envision it to be very airy and open and not kind of a dark space, but a light, bright space that will bring people in for a variety of reasons. And this is a view approaching from the west, looking east, and you just kind of get a character of how, with all these improvements, it kind of builds up a streetscape of sorts, and it gives kind of this running character throughout the drive. This jump to the south side, and this would be the community service building, we would see a flexible community space up on the second floor overlooking a lot of these improvements. Again, having that strong pedestrian spine that really serves as an overflow for the indoor space. So when there's larger events or special events that need the services that the building provides, they kind of work in concert with one another. And this shot kind of gives us a broad overview of how all these improvements fit into the site. On the right-hand side, we see the community service building, which is about, as it stands now, about a 25,000 square foot building, with amenities and patios that kind of flex space on the back side of the building as well. But then having that corridor with some improved parking going to the north into the community shelter and those covered recreation facilities and those more traditional park, playground amenities as well. There is an adjacent existing parking lot on the bottom of the screen there that is privately held and could be subject to future redevelopment of some sort as well.
Thanks, Rob. Just Drew, a heads up, I got about 2 minutes left and then we'll be done. So just kind of wrapping up, kind of this case study, this specific neighborhood as it relates to again, the 3 Ps of our roadmap. I think I want to harken back to kind of hub goal number 2, and that is this idea of the hub being a stabilizing catalyst for the neighborhood. But I also want to kind of bring that back in a bigger picture perspective about our Healthy Neighborhoods initiative. So since we adopted that initiative in 2019, we've seen a lot of good things happen in this neighborhood. We've seen our TIF district be expanded. So initially it was just a few properties in that area. Now it pretty much has been expanded to mirror the boundary of our priority neighborhood. So we think that's a great thing. As I mentioned earlier, we did enlist another consultant, Vanderwall, to come up with a visioning document for that corridor. So I think that can really help us set the stage, broadly speaking, in that neighborhood over the next 5 or 10 years. And then where the rubber hits the road with all this stuff is we are seeing new, good quality development up there. Both affordable and market rate housing, which we think is great. And for years, Fitchburg has tried to really initiate some vertical density, some mixed use. We haven't been wholly successful, but we are starting to see more of that in this corridor as well. So all really good things that we think is a direct result of us developing this initiative. So just in terms of lessons learned and wrapping things up, I think when we develop the initiative and as we implement it and as we move forward, we're really conscious of kind of these four spheres of our initiative being data-driven, being reliant on partners, being proactive, looking upstream, and then being outcome-based. And I think hopefully the things we've showed you today kind of reflect these 4 elements. And as we move forward with the initiative, we will continue to focus on these and make sure we're staying true to these concepts. So with that, we are done. We thank you for your time, your interest, and can certainly answer any questions or take any comments that folks might have.
So Wade, we've got a couple of questions that have come in. I'll start with one off the app. Do you interact with a community health improvement plan in either Dane County or the state? If so, how did that inform your Healthy Neighborhood initiative?
Yeah, we haven't interacted specifically with that plan. at least to my knowledge. I know like when we were initially developing the initiative, I did talk with a lot of county public health folks. I think they were doing some strategic planning. I don't know if it was the planning that this person references or not, but we kind of gave them a sense of where we were going. And I think we bounced some ideas off each other. So I think that was a constructive discussion. And then I'll just harken back to my first slide where we did some acknowledgements. We have been working with what's called the Health and All Policies Work Group. It's kind of a UW-Madison spinoff, but they've really helped us frame this kind of broadly speaking in terms of public health. So again, how public health outcomes are ultimately dictated by a lot of the neighborhood factors and issues that we're seeing and that we're trying to address. So I guess to answer your question, I don't know if we've specifically worked with the folks under that plan, but we are very conscious of public health as it relates to this initiative.
Thank you. Second question, you said this would be done without displacing people. How are you ensuring that and or measuring that?
Yeah, very good question. So a little bit of this gets out of my realm as a staff person here, but we did recently develop a housing committee about a year ago. Before that, we had really no city organization that was overseeing housing in our city. I think that one of that city's goals is to kind of maintain that residential, single family, multifamily mix, and also maintain that spectrum of affordability of housing in our city. I think that committee has actually earmarked a certain number of affordable units that they want to build over the next 5 years, and that committee is tracking that. One classic example is I mentioned new development in our case study neighborhood. We did just see, I think, a 200 unit, maybe 150 unit senior affordable housing project. So again, I think at some level we're keeping track of this stuff a little bit conceptually, but as we move forward, I think we'll really drill down to maybe some finer metrics and figure out ways to make sure we're not displacing. To that end, I think there's additional research and study that I can do in my department, the people I work with can do, to really paint that picture of, again, good new market rate development, but also making sure we're maintaining affordable stock as well. So it's a work in progress, just like I think from what I'm reading everywhere else in the country, but we're certainly making an effort.
Thank you. How did you choose the neighborhood navigators that you hired? Did you use an RFP or use older partners?
Yeah, maybe I'll just quickly touch on that, and then Carmen, do you want to chime in on that? So basically, the money came with some strings attached. It was $20,000 per year from Dane County. And what the county said is we want the navigators to not only help facilitate communication between city and residents, but also between county and residents. And as we all know, the county has a lot of public health, social service type resources that the city doesn't. So essentially the navigators kind of have two tasks, I would say, connecting people to county resources and then connecting people to the city resources. But in terms of actually finding our two navigators, it was a standard city hiring process. I want to be clear that Carmen, our navigator, and Elizabeth, our other navigator, are not trained in this profession. They don't have master's degrees in social work, or they haven't had this kind of experience before. They are simply interested, motivated residents that want to do better in their neighborhood. So we put out a job announcement. I connected with all those partners we created through the grant program. We got the word out. We got a good applicant pool, and we went with Carmen and Elizabeth, and I think I've been very happy with their work.
Thank you. Were the panels on the open air areas solar panels or skylights, and is this a sustainable development?
As depicted on the images there, those are solar panels. Any sustainable efforts that can be incorporated into this at this level of design is what we're going for. Whether some things like that or other elements, get reduced because of budgetary constraints. Those are possibilities that you get into in kind of the next phase of design when you get things a little more dialed in. But for right now, sustainable elements to any part of the design are a goal.
Thanks. And then final question here, as the neighborhood shares a border with Leopold and Madison and the demographics are similar, will people from Madison also be welcome to use the facilities?
Yeah, great question. I think one of the goals of our initiative is to blur the lines between Fitchburg and Madison. You know, I think, to be honest, some folks that live in that neighborhood, you know, they're on one side of the street, they're in Fitchburg, and when they walk to the other side, they're in Madison. So at the end of the day, they just want to be served. And I think as the two cities, we want to figure out how we can most efficiently serve residents of that neighborhood. Certainly, over the past few years, I've been in discussions with City of Madison staff. I want to particularly thank Linda Horvath, City of Madison planner. Linda's been working in this neighborhood for years, and we've been able to pick up on some of Linda's work and take it to the next step. But yes, I certainly envision neighborhood users of this site, whether they be Fitchburg or Madison.
Great. Well, that takes us to the end. I'd like to thank all of our presenters and all of our participants for joining us this afternoon, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Drew.